What is up, Ravens flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. James and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin. Man, Glenn, the news keeps on coming in. The NFL never sleeps. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. And every year it seems to be more and more rampant. What we're going to talk about today, based on the title, of course, is one Deebo Samuel. Quite funny because I'm not too far from the neighborhood of the original Deebo. Just down the road here. But Deebo Samuel, Glenn.
Peace, by the way.
That's right. Absolutely. Deebo Samuel looks to be reportedly wanting out of San Francisco. What do you got as far as details on that deal or on the situation?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it's not just what you'd think on the surface. You know, the wide receiver market certainly exploded this year in the NFL, and it's forcing a number of receivers that are in the same draft class as Deebo Samuel, Marquise Brown, to I don't know, hold out or basically it just exploded their possibilities of what they could possibly get paid. So it looks like on the surface, well, maybe there's just contract disputes on how much they get paid, but it seems like it's definitely more than that. There was a report coming out of NFL Network that's the quote here, I'm not exactly sure. I think this is Tom Pelissero from NFL Network. He says, it sounds like there's multiple layers to this, but certainly one of them is Deebo Samuel wants to be a receiver and not a receiver / running back. His rushing attempts were significantly up last season from where they've been in the past. We all know he's a really, really physical player, but there are probably some concerns here about longevity. The counterpoint to that, of course, is that in part of the reason that Deebo Samuel is so valuable is because of his versatility. But in the big picture, it sounds like the role is part of the reason why Deebo wants to be playing somewhere else to potentially add years to the back end of his career. So it looks like Deebo Samuel is now he's concerned that the wear and tear on his body from being both a high target receiver and now spending time in the backfield. It sounds like he thinks that's a little bit too much for him, Jimbo.
Yeah, it's interesting. And just to back that up, because you never know, like, if that's actually the situation or if it's about money, right? Like, I mean, Orlando Brown, was it actually about left tackle or is it about money? We can speculate, but we'll never know. Now, this, of course, is a little different. But point being, to add to the credence of that statement, Adam Schefter put out a report today and said, this, I think right now, is Deebo Samuel not wanting to get a deal done. It's not San Francisco not willing to do the deal. The 49ers are ready. Deebo Samuel is the one who has put a halt to everything for right now. So I think that just speaks to what you're saying, Glenn, that it sounds like it's a fit and a role thing, not a money thing, right? Because my initial thought was this is a nation tactic, trying to twist their arm to get the money that he wants, if not get him out of there and get paid somewhere else. But it doesn't seem to be that way. They've probably put an offer on the table that is something that he would want to sign with some sort of consideration that, like you said, he wants to change roles. Now, what really matters are two things. One, do we believe he actually moves on? Two, are the Ravens in the running? So before we talk about the Ravens really quickly, Glenn, let's talk about the possibility of him moving on. Where are you? Like either on a scale of 1 to 10 or a percentage breakdown. Give me where you're at in your mind about the likelihood of him moving on.
Yeah, that's such a tough call. I mean, all these receivers in his draft class seemingly are scrubbing their social medias from anything related to the team. So that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be leaving, and neither does all these reports. And also the part I'm having trouble with is if you're Deebo Samuel and you I'm sure as a player you want the ball, you want the opportunity to do to make plays and to I don't know about put up stats, but he certainly wants to make plays and help his team
just
win.
Opportunities to make plays. Exactly. Right.
And so Coach Shanahan, of course it benefits Coach as well and the entire team, but Coach Shanahan went ahead and found every possible way to get Deebo Samuel the ball, which I'm sure he wasn't complaining at the time. I'm sure he wasn't going, I don't want the ball here, coach. I'm sure he was saying, hell yeah, put me in. I want to make plays. So why the sudden is it a sudden change? It seems like a sudden change of heart. Now the question is it just because people are getting in his ear, outside influence is going, look, you might be able to tack on a couple years at the end of your career if you don't take such a beating out there. Maybe you shouldn't be a running back in it. But to me, that's what makes him Deebo Samuel. If we take away his ability or his his carries out of the backfield and take away that versatility, is he still a great player? Like, he's a good player, no
Sure.
doubt about that. He's a very good player, but is he a player that it deserves to be the highest paid receiver? Now,
Right.
it could be his turn, but is he really worthy of that?
Right. Because, if you're comparing him to, does he from a pass catching standpoint, does he have the same impact as a Tyreek?
Yeah. That's the question. I think you froze up a little bit, Jimbo. But yeah, I mean, even those so the Ravens fans that are saying, he's so much better than Hollywood, which I've heard. And, if you want to tell me that he's a better football player than Marquise Brown, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you over it. I think you have a point there. I mean, Marquise is pretty good too. But I will say this: if people are complaining about the drops we see from Marquise Brown, if you take away the rushing numbers, which are substantial for Deebo, and just look at his receiving numbers, while on the surface 77 catches for 1,400 yards, that's impressive, right? That's
Yeah.
no matter how
Yeah.
you slice it, that's impressive. But he also had a drop rate of double the percentage of Hollywood Brown. So if drops were a frustration for you with Hollywood on 100 catches, well, I assume his target rate, if Deebo becomes a receiver only and he plays the same number of snaps, which I believe was 80% of his team's offensive snaps, well, then his targets, I'm assuming, is going to at least be that what they were this year or go up because he's not going to be in the backfield. So then his drop rate is likely to go up unless he gets substantially better all of a sudden. So, I mean, I just don't know, Jimbo. I don't know if he's valuable as valuable as a receiver,
Right.
or if he kind of hurts his value a little bit.
The last thing I'll say about this is that it could be a front because it really is about the money. Like, look, at the end of the day, jobs are about money, right? 90% of it is money. And so if I go from one job to another and I say to my next employer, well, it's really about fit. No, it's about the fact that you're about to offer me 50% more of what the guy did before that I'm working for. It's not about fit, right? So sometimes people can use that as a facade. You know what I mean? So who knows? Maybe he goes to a team that is willing to pay him what he wants to get paid, and all of a sudden the problems of being a running back go away, right? So,
Could be.
There's definitely validity to I'm not trying to, make what was reported not valid, but certainly people say things, right? Like for Orlando Brown, he was never going to say it was about the money, even though certainly it was a component of the deal, right?
Absolutely.
So now this is the real question. We won't belabor it any longer. Is there a possibility that the Ravens are in it? I want to, if you'll bear with me here, Glenn, I'm gonna answer this one at first. Is simply that yes, and it surprises me, to be totally honest with you. But even before this became public today, it was reported that the Ravens, along with a few other teams, but not a ton of teams, the Ravens called. And they were they wanted to know what it would take to get Deebo Samuel from the Niners. And of course, the report was the Niners said he's not on the market. Now, is Eric DeCosta picking up the phone again and saying, John, what's it take, my man? He obviously doesn't want to be there. So it's interesting to me because you have to give up assets and you have to give up, future assets, right? Like not just, or you have to give up money and pay him, and you have to give up assets. Is what I'm trying to say. So it surprises me that the Ravens are in it, but I would say clearly and defiantly yes, because it's been reported even before this went public today. What about you?
I gotta think that it's so tough for me because part of me just says, well, they're doing their due diligence. They're reaching out to a player who's clearly unhappy just to explore what it would take to get him to leave. Because here's the thing, Jimbo, not only do the Ravens not like giving up a ton of draft picks, which I think you have the details on a more recent trade that is definitely considered a comparable. Not only do they not want to give up those draft picks, but how the heck are they going to pay this guy $30 million after they give up all those draft picks? when you absolutely have to, because you can't give up draft picks, all these draft picks, which I know you're about to go over,
Yeah.
without then investing in him long term, or you did all that for 1 year rental.
Right, exactly. And just like you said, you have to consider not just the details of Tyreek Hill's deal, which I'll talk about, but also, like you said, the contract and where your quarterback is, because Lamar's about to explode. Tua, even, I don't see him ever getting. I don't know. I'm not a
Yeah,
believer.
they have a little more leniency there
Right,
with their,
but even still, they have a longer runway.
Yeah.
Even if Tua exploded, right, he's still got more years on his rookie deal, where Lamar is at the end of it. So, Tyreek Hill, first of all, like you said, Glenn, is going to be making $30 million a year. And I think he got 72 or 75 million guaranteed, something ridiculous. But aside from that, the Dolphins gave up a first-round pick this year, 29th pick this year, the 50th pick this year, their second-round pick, the fourth-round pick this year, a fourth-round pick next year, and a sixth-round pick next year. So in total, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks. 3 in the top 50.
And $30 million a year.
And $30 million a year. 3 in the top 50. That's no poo-poo.
Serious.
You know what I mean?
No, that's serious value, especially for a Ravens front office.
Yeah, I guess, it technically could be in the top 64 or whatever, but 3 in the first 2 rounds.
That's incredible.
Yeah, man, aside from all that. So yeah, that would be a haul. Something uncharacteristic of the Baltimore Ravens. And Eric might have to lock himself in his office and make that call, with Ozzie beating on the door, telling him not to do it.
Yeah.
For him to do it. So while I believe that the Ravens are in it, like you said, it's conflicting because it's not characteristic of the Ravens franchise to do something like that, right? Maybe that he was calling before to see if he could. It was kind of a distressed asset thing, like, hey, you guys are going through a thing, like, why don't you get? But now that it's made public, everyone knows Deebo wants out. But usually it's the other way around, where, like, since it's public, just like Orlando, the value goes down, right?
And that could be the case. But that would probably have to take place then after the draft.
Yeah. Could this be a draft night situation?
I mean, it would be insane to see him get traded draft night, but I will say this: the Ravens do have a leg up being in the AFC, because if I was trading a stud like Deebo Samuel, I don't want to do it to a team I have to see in the near future, especially when I'm a Super Bowl contender like the Niners consider themselves. But my thing here, though, Jimbo, is, do the Ravens not already have a version of Deebo Samuel on this roster? Now, I'm not saying he's no Deebo Samuel, but can't we get similar? Don't you see some similar traits out of Devin Duvernay and what he's been able to do? He's a former running back when he came out of high school, and I believe when he got to college, he was a running back initially. And he's already a all-pro return guy, which is, another feature. So we know he's good with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, now, open field, he's great.
Right. Now, there's definitely some separation when it comes to Deebo's ability as a receiver. It's from what we've seen so far and what, we've seen from Devin Duvernay. But we got a player who does a lot of similar things, and he's going to be a whole lot less expensive already.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, people might light us up. I actually saw a really funny tweet about, there's a funny gif of a guy doing this when Ravens fans wanting to compare Deebo Samuel to Devin Duvernay to Deebo Samuel, which is exactly what we are doing. But I understand your point completely, and I would go even further to say it's not overly zealous to say that, honestly, we don't know if Devin Duvernay is just as good as Deebo Samuel at assimilating that role, right? We don't know, because he hasn't been given the opportunity from a volume standpoint. He just hasn't been given the opportunity. But what we do know, every time Devin Duvernay has been given the opportunity with the rock in his hands, like you said, he's an all-pro at every opportunity he's gotten, right? Like, even when he gets the ball in those little sweeps, he pretty much always does something with it. We're always happy with it at the end of it. It's not like Hollywood, where he ends up going -2 yards and diving for his life out of bounds, right? Like, that's not Devin. I mean, so point being, we don't know. We really don't know. And I don't think that's overly biased or like too much of a Ravens fan just saying that. I think it's just the truth. We don't know. It's fair.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that he's not what Deebo is right now, but it's also, you're getting what percentage of Deebo for what percentage of his paycheck. Like that's what you have to balance. I mean, you're paying Lamar Jackson over $50 million in the near future. You can't just go out and sign everybody you would want. Now, He would definitely look good in this offense. He would be a problem. He'd be a matchup issue
Yeah.
at many different levels. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, I mean, I want to give you some numbers here, Jimbo.
Okay.
Now this is a much smaller sample size. He didn't carry the ball as much, but Devin Duvernay averaged 7.1 yards per carry, and Deebo averaged 6.2. Now he had a lot more carries, so I'm not trying to say he
Sure.
didn't, but in a smaller sample size, he did just a little bit better than Deebo did. And then as a receiver, Devin Duvernay again miles behind him in where is targets
From a volume
and all that
perspective,
stuff.
yeah.
Exactly, not even close. He still handled himself just fine as far as his catch percentage. It was actually 7% higher catch rate than Deebo Samuel on target. So, again, not saying he's the same. I certainly don't want to get crushed here, but if drops are an issue, if all that stuff's an issue, and you take away the rushing ability from Deebo Samuel, I don't see the value anymore. If you just telling me the Ravens can give up a first, a second, I mean a first,
6 picks.
Yeah, 6 picks and
a
30
first,
million.
a second, a third, a second, a fourth, and a sixth.
I can't do that and pay him 30 million and take away his rushing ability, which is a big part of what makes him special.
100%. I agree with you. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Deebo Samuel. Let us know what you guys think. Are you ready to go out there and get him? Is this one of those situations, Glenn, where as a Ravens fan, some people say, look, Chip's all in. We need to go. Lamar's going all in, right? Like it's a bold move. Let's go all in. Let's get a known commodity over here. Let's get it done because other teams are doing it. Look how fast the Dolphins have gone all in, right? Like it's insane. So let us know what your guys' thoughts are. Are you for the Deebo Samuel trade? Are you not? What do you think the likelihood of it is? All your comments below, and we'll talk to you guys soon.